I am a perfect example of what happens when you pursue only big compound lifts and you are not genetically gifted in the arms. All right, I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this. So this is training clips from one of my arm days right after I recently added them in. Of course, this may not be up for 4, 5, 6 weeks. These videos tend to get a little bit behind, but I'm a perfect example. People said for years, oh, your arms suck, you have tiny arms, how come you lift all this weight, you don't have big arms, even though I'd have phases where I did curls and stuff. But how did I approach arms? Arms were always a secondary consideration. Oftentimes didn't train them that hard, even for sometimes it would be cheat curls or whatever, or I would do periods of time where I only did hammer curls and no real supine grip work, so on and so forth. And what was the end result? I ended up having arms that lag. Now, granted, I have long arms, pretty long arms. I have like a 3-inch ape index. So that's a factor. Yes, I don't have the best insertions, but my overall arm size was still not in proportion, even in terms of measurements, to my torso, back, all of that stuff. And that was even though I did tons of heavy pulling. I want to be clear there. I've gotten to where I can do sets of 10 with a 45-pound plate on weighted chin-ups, weighing over 200 pounds, yet still didn't really develop the best biceps possible doing that. Same thing with tricep work, always doing extensions at the end. As very much as an afterthought on upper-lower type splits. So I was always fatigued by the time I got to arms. And again, keep in mind, we had periods of time where we didn't do curls. We would have months at a time with no curls of any type. So oftentimes whatever I would go back and rebuild would be probably what I detrained and lost during that time in the bicep. So when people say, oh, you can just do big compound movements and you'll have big arms, if you're genetically gifted for big arms. But in my case, it then required me to start actually doing an arm day. And I'm not saying everyone needs an arm day to have big arms. What I am saying is that when you treat arms like an afterthought, at the end of long, intense workouts, okay, it's going to be a problem. In other words, if you've done a bunch of sets of rows, because didn't I do stuff like that? What all would you guys see me do before I would even touch arms? And even then, my arms started growing again a little bit when I started doing curls. So you go back when my physique even started to improve at all. When I went away from pure powerlifting over to saying, okay, let's work on physique. Because I did do pure powerlifting for years again. Keep in mind, I got back on the platform. And again, you saw periods of time where it would just be some hammer curls. I also bought into winnings nonsense. Oh, we shouldn't be doing supine grip stuff. Well, that's a perfect example of someone with a similar situation. Have you ever seen anyone who benches 600 pounds with arms that small before? Yeah, triceps, but no biceps. So then when he said, well, you got to earn your bicep work, and then we can do this to avoid the supine work. He is the biggest, strongest man I've ever seen with biceps that small. He also exemplifies kind of what I was talking about there. At least he has triceps, though. But what is it that led to me listening to him saying, oh, it's not worth it, it's just a show muscle. Plenty of people have done supine grip work and been fine. They just don't do stupid stuff with it. Okay? They don't do cheat stuff. They do strict work and don't have overuse issues. And they do it for decades. And they're just fine. So in that case, what ended up happening? Everything was an afterthought. So even then when my physique started improving, we saw the arms start coming up a little bit. You'd see me bench press and incline bench and do back work. So we would do sometimes 2 types of rows. You'd see me do a seal row or a barbell row and a dumbbell row. I'd do 2 types of rows because that was before I was able to do pull-ups again. Then I got to where I could start doing pull-ups again, got my shoulder health back on point. We would do all that before we did our one tricep or bicep exercise, our one. So it would be some sort of extension. Sometimes it would just be JM presses, right? Sometimes it would be extensions. Then we do curls. A lot of times you saw me doing power curls, cheat curls. So my nervous system was fatigued. I had done all this tons of heavy work first. It would be different if you only did one, but I did chest and back before we got to arms. You know, if you just did chest and then triceps on a chest tricep day, you could get away with that. If you did it from day one, I already had lagging arms. Same thing, you could do biceps after back if you don't have lagging arms already. You still have proportionate development, as long as you're not doing a bunch of other stuff first. Because at least the biceps are being worked on every exercise you're doing. You're not creating huge amounts of fatigue before any bicep work has been done. Okay, you can get away with that if you're balanced. But I'm going to say to anybody, you can't skip curls and extensions if you want big arms. Unless you are really genetically gifted. But even then, the genetically gifted guy's still probably going to get another inch by adding those things. He's still losing an inch by skipping them. And I said for years, oh, we can do this. It'll be fine. We don't need curls because we don't need massive biceps. The problem is then people are like, how come you don't have big arms? I thought you lift. How come you lift all this big weight? Okay. This is not good. And a lot of people do it as a cope to pursue strength. I really and truly thought it would be fine. I wanted to pursue strength as a primary, but then I'm like, it'll be fine. I won't risk overusing the biceps and any of that. But it doesn't work. Again, I want to note you can do other stuff first if you're balanced and it's not a bunch of stuff. Like I said, you can't do a full upper body day and then throw arms in at the end and still have big arms. It doesn't work. Something I realized even with some of my clients who needed arm specialization. It doesn't work. You've got to split stuff up further. The guys I saw who did split routines who had big arms though, you guys remember who they were. Even some of my vloggers. We still did a push-pull legs. So guess what? They did biceps on back day. Right? They didn't do chest and back first. It was just back. They did triceps after benching, maybe incline. But they didn't do a bunch of lats in between. Okay? So they just finished them off. But they had proportionate development. If that gets messed up, you're going to have an arm day. Or if you're just imbalanced already. So this is how you need to think about it when we start looking at splits. And if you want big arms, guys, you're either going to have to split your training up like that, or you're going to need a separate arm day. And I'm just speaking from personal experience. Again, pointing out I was wrong all those years ago, and we saw the results. And you have to be man enough to admit when you're wrong. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.